Morning. Mathias Cormann, good to see you. First of all,
morning.
This has been a Nationals problem to now, but today has it become a government problem?
We have a very strong and united coalition team. We're very focused on dealing with the challenges facing Australia, like from bushfires to the drought, dealing with the impact of the coronavirus, continuing to make the decisions to build a stronger, more resilient economy where all Australians have the best possible opportunity to get ahead. Barnaby Joyce is obviously a very significant member of our team. He has worked very hard as a constructive contributor to our team for a very, very long time. I'm convinced that we will continue to focus on the issues that matter to the Australian people and stop the internal focus moving forward.
Is it constructive to threaten to block your own government's legislation?
Well, I don't believe that that's what will happen. I mean, obviously, in the coalition on, matters of strong personal conviction on specific issues, it's always open to individual members to, take a particular position. But, if you look at Barnaby's track record, I just heard the reference to him crossing the floor. That was a very, very, very long time ago. That hasn't happened for a very, very long time.
Do you think he's changed since the Howard days and you just see this as an idle threat?
I don't, I wouldn't describe it like that. I'm convinced that Barnaby will continue, as he has for a long time, to play a constructive and important role as part of a strong and united Liberal National coalition team.
Should he be in the front bench? Should he be in cabinet?
Look, these are not judgments for me to make. Ultimately, the lineup of National Party ministers is a matter for the leader of the National Party, and obviously Michael McCormack was re-endorsed by his party room as the leader of the Nationals earlier in the week. We completely respect that that is a matter for them, in the same way as the leadership and the lineup of the Liberal Party is a matter for our party room.
I guess a few people might be looking at this decision this week, though, and scratching their heads. You sit in cabinet. Is this really the strongest front bench team, or is it personality and politics that always has a factor in these things?
Well, I do sit in the cabinet. Let me tell you, David Littleproud, who's become the deputy leader, is doing an outstanding job. He has done an outstanding job over the summer, in his areas of responsibility in relation to emergency management in particular. He's, of course, previously been the Minister for Agriculture. He returns to that portfolio. Darren Chester has obviously been a minister for a long time. He's been in cabinet before as the Minister for Infrastructure, and he obviously now returns to cabinet as the Minister for Veterans Affairs. The first time since 1993 that the Veterans Affairs portfolio is represented around the cabinet table. And Keith Pitt, also an experienced member of Parliament, previously on the front bench, experienced as an engineer, a businessman in Queensland. Of course he'll bring significant experiences to the conversations around the cabinet table, and I'm certain will make an outstanding contribution.
Do you think Bridget McKenzie can make a comeback to cabinet?
Of course. Look at the history. Look at the political history of Australia. Bridget McKenzie made an error in not disclosing a conflict of interest which put her in breach with ministerial standards, and that is the reason why she resigned. She obviously paid a high price, and it obviously depends on circumstances down the track. But Bridget McKenzie is a very talented member of Parliament. She's made a great contribution in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised if she had the opportunity to make a contribution again, within the ministry in the future. Okay,
well, this core group of Nationals, it was really uncovered this week, want more support for coal and a coal-fired power station. Does a new coal-fired power station stack up financially?
Well, we haven't committed to that. Obviously, in the lead up to the election, we made a commitment to a feasibility study, and these are obviously the processes that need to be gone through in a normal way. But let me just say that coal, under any government over the foreseeable future, will continue to be an important energy source in Australia, as it will be around the world. But by the same token, we've already increased the level of renewable energy into the national electricity market to 25%, and that is projected to reach 50% by 2030. So if you look at the level of investment in renewable energy in Australia, we are leading the world. I mean, we are investing more than 3 times as much in renewable than Germany on a per capita basis. Sorry?
Has it surpassed the need for something like Collinsville?
Well, look, I mean, that is not a judgment, an ad hoc judgment for me to make, like this, on your television program. And these are things that need to be properly assessed, and that is, of course, why it is important to go through these proper processes and feasibility studies.
Okay, let's look at the economy a little bit more broadly now, Mathias Cormann. Strong retail figures, a pretty upbeat RBA governor, despite the bushfires and the coronavirus over the last couple of months. But do you expect that people just aren't living this, great economic reality that you and others in government often talk about?
Well, what we're talking about is the fact that we've worked very hard in the last 6 years to make the Australian economy more resilient. I mean, there's no question that we have faced a series of very significant headwinds. I mean, a slowdown in the global economy, which had flow-on consequences for us. And of course, floods, drought, bushfires, coronavirus. I mean, the reason we were able to make significant additional investments to deal with the drought and support drought-affected communities. The reason we were able to make $2 billion of funding available on the spot for the bushfire recovery. The reason we're being able to do all these things without imposing additional higher taxes like the Gillard government had to do in the context of the flood in 2011 when they imposed the flood levy is because we've worked very hard to strengthen the economy and to strengthen our budget position. And I mean, that is what it's all about. I mean, we are now in our 29th year of continuous growth. More than 1.5 million jobs created in the last 6 years. Our workforce participation is at the highest level on record, in particular among women and older Australians. And our wages continue to grow faster than inflation. So, I mean, given all of the challenges that we've been facing internationally and domestically, the Australian economy continues to perform well. And indeed, as the Governor of the Reserve Bank has pointed out, I mean, our outlook is quietly optimistic.
Yeah, and the Governor does not seem to care whether you actually reach this surplus, whether it's a small surplus, back in balance. It just wants you to spend more. The RBA just wants you to spend more. Will you, or can you do both?
We will continue to ensure that government lives within its means. I mean, in the end, the government doesn't have any money of its own. For us to spend more, we have to take more money out of the pockets of Australians or out of the pockets of Australian businesses. That means less money available for Australians to spend in the economy. It means less money for business to invest into our future growth. So it's always a matter of balancing these things. We want to ensure that our economy has the best possible potential to grow into the future. I mean, this has been the core of the argument in the lead up to the last election. There was on one side the high taxing socialist anti-business agenda of the Labor Party, which was rejected, and on the other side the lower taxes, pro-growth, pro-opportunity, pro-aspiration agenda of the Liberal National Parties. And we will continue to implement the agenda and the values, the policy and political values that we took to the last election.
Mathias Cormann, thanks for your time.